It's a great day to be a Penn Stater. I'm Liz King from the Penn State Alumni Association, and I'm thrilled to be with all of you today. Welcome to People of Penn State. Each week on the podcast, you can expect to hear the voices of Penn Staters talking about what they are passionate about, and you can expect to feel the pride and the power of the Penn State Network. Erin Hogge, class of 2021, is a certified flight instructor at United Aviate Academy, based in Phoenix, Arizona. Erin started her pilot training in 2023, earning her commercial pilot and flight instructor certificates earlier this year. A former news editor of the Daily Collegian, she switched career paths after reading articles about the pilot shortage before her final semester at University Park. In the future, Erin aspires to fly as a captain for a major U.S. airline. Let's welcome Erin to the program. Erin, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to get this recording going.
We are so excited to have you here too. So I'm going to start with the first question. Can you tell us how you became a Penn State Nittany Lion?
Yes. So I'm from Northern Virginia. I wasn't really looking at any out-of-state schools, but I started researching the top journalism programs in the country, and Penn State kept popping up, kept being like the first one that would show in the search results. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll take one of my high school gave us a couple days to go tour different colleges. So I thought I might as well just go see what it's about. So my mom and I drove up there for a tour. It was November 2017, I believe. And it was fall time. There was a chill in the air. The campus looked beautiful. It wasn't really on my radar because I was trying to stay in state. But we drove up and we came in from our hotel, coming in on the football stadium side of campus. And as soon as I saw that, my jaw kind of dropped and I was like, wait a second. Okay, this is a big deal. This is not like any of the other schools I've looked at. All the other schools I was thinking about attending were much smaller. So this was kind of a little bit of a culture shock for me. It was like something straight out of a movie that you see where you have that rah-rah college experience. So I started the tour with the Belisario College of Communications. We were in the hub in one of the auditorium rooms, and right off the bat, I was greeted by a couple of the staff members, which again hadn't happened at any of the smaller schools that I had toured. So I just got a great impression right off the bat. I talked to James Perry in the College of Communications, and then we heard from Dean Marie Harden. She addressed all of us, and I just got a really good feeling. I mean, it was cold outside, but felt really warm in the room, as cliche as that sounds. I didn't expect that from a big school. I thought I would be kind of treated as just another number, just, one of thousands of students interested in the program. So after that great experience, I went home and applied straight away. And then shortly thereafter got my acceptance and talked to my family and decided that was where I was going to go. And I didn't look back, and I had a great time, great experience from there.
That's awesome. Yeah, Penn State is such a special place, and I love how it's so big, yet it's so small and has those intimate experiences that so many of our students have. So that's great. Thanks for sharing. So you talked about how you met people in the Belisario community. Sorry, Vincent, I'm going to have you edit that part. Start that again. Okay, so you talked about how you met people from the Belisario College of Communications, and I think it's really interesting that you pursued a double major. And so could you tell us a little bit about the path that led you to your dual degrees in digital and print journalism from the Belisario College, as well as history from the College of Liberal Arts?
Absolutely. Yes. It was not something that I actually intended to do from the start. History was not really on my radar in that sense. I met with my advisor in the College of Communications, and as a journalism major, you're required to minor in something other than communications, which kind of makes sense because they always say you need to be able to communicate in something. So I had history credits. I was in advanced placement courses throughout high school. So my advisor informed me that I actually had enough credits for a history minor. I only needed about 2 or 3 more classes, I believe, to finish the minor. But she said, you could just turn it into another major if you can get it to work in your schedule. And I kind of felt like that was a little bit daunting, but then I started scrolling through all of the history courses online, and so many of them sounded way too interesting to me to pass up on. So then I thought, okay, I can make this work. I'll figure it out. And that's what I did. I just went back and decided to enroll for a second major and made it work with my schedule. Fortunately, everything worked out, and I'm very glad that I did. Just because I was so close to the major anyway with the course credits. And I had some really amazing history professors and who made the experience very engaging, because I know a lot of times history can be kind of dry for a lot of people, myself included, but I had a great experience then joining the College of the Liberal Arts for that major.
That's great. We hear from so many of our Penn Staters when they just tell us about that drive and the passion that they have, and finding out that they love something that they didn't really know that it was, part of what they were meant to do. So that's a really great story. So you talked a little bit about some of your professors in history. Can you tell us what some of your favorite classes were and how some of your relationships with your professors stick with you beyond graduation?
Absolutely. One history professor in particular sticks out to me. I haven't reached out to him since I left, so maybe this will prompt me to do that. But his name was Dr. Daniel Letwin. I had him for, I believe it was History 445. It was all about the Industrial Revolution period in early American history. I believe the period was the late 1870s to just before 1920 at some point. And that class sticks with me because the content was very interesting to me. That's just kind of my favorite period of history to learn about in American history. But specifically the professor, right off the bat from day one, he was very engaging, and I could feel that he truly did care about all of our success as students. Not just in his own class and within the history department, but outside of classes in our extracurriculars. He was a professor who emailed me a couple times to tell me that a story I wrote in the Daily Collegian, he had read it and he had found it interesting. And in our classes too, he was just very engaging and made history, at least in my opinion, fun to learn about. He had this one assignment in particular, I believe it's toward the end of the course. We had a final paper, so a typical essay, but before that paper, there was a different assignment called a conversation paper, where he wanted us to write about that time period in history, but write it as like a creative writing project. So I really enjoyed that because it had been a while since I had done any creative writing. I had just been kind of doing the news reporting, the journalism thing, and then traditional essay style writing for all of my classes. So that was a really, really engaging thing that will stick with me for the rest of my life because it turned something that could have just been a routine kind of boring assignment into something fun. So I really, really enjoyed that.
It's really special when our professors and people who are guiding us through this educational experience make it fun and make it enjoyable. And then ultimately, I think you get the greatest experience out of your time as a student. So that's really great. Can you tell us, Erin, what are your favorite memories from your time at Penn State?
Oh gosh, I feel like there's so many that I could list right now. I'm very fortunate that I met a solid group of friends my freshman year, freshman and sophomore year. So I've got like 4 other girlfriends who we still keep in contact every single day. So that's an overall kind of general memory, I guess. Let's see. I'm trying to think of something more specific. Any whiteout football game, honestly. I know that's a kind of cliche Penn State answer, but there truly is nothing like a whiteout game. We've got that fall crisp air, or maybe a little colder than that, and 100,000 people, 100,000 of your best friends, all gathered around with you, cheering on the team, hoping that they win. Um, I would say also just moments of solace and even just studying alone. I often would go out when the weather was nice, to the Arboretum, our beautiful garden on campus, and just walk around there, sit on the little lawn by the pond, and read a book for fun or study for a class. Same thing with at the alumni garden by the Hints Alumni Association building. The little duck pond with the gazebo and the benches hidden within the small garden there. I would often go study there, as well as in the stacks of the Petit and Paterno Library. Of course, that's a classic Penn State student study spot. So a lot of studying moments, I realize, are my memories, but I was keeping busy, so those were some of my favorite spots. And then other memories, just going to McClanahan's for Meatball Monday with my friends. That was always fun to go downtown and do. And let's see, I'm trying to think of something else. I think that kind of covers it for the general memories. There's so many things that are going through my head right now, but those couple of things stick out.
This is the People of Penn State, and I am Liz King. I'm joined by Erin Hogge, certified flight instructor at the United Aviate Academy based in Phoenix, Arizona. Erin, you had some great opportunities when you were at University Park with student news reporting and media experiences. Would you tell us more about how you got involved in that and the opportunities you had?
Absolutely. So when I went on that first original tour of campus, I learned about the Daily Collegian, which I actually had already learned about because I did a lot of research before I went on that first campus tour when I was still in high school. I knew that was something that I wanted to get involved with as soon as I actually got to campus. And first semester I was there, tried out for the Collegian's news staff, which involved writing an article and answering a few questions, I believe. And then I was fortunate enough to be accepted to the news staff. From there, I stuck with it pretty much every semester, and then worked my way up to being the news editor for my final semester working for the Collegian. That gave me unbelievably great experience with news reporting, because I feel like there's only so much that you can get accomplished and learn about when you are taking a news reporting class. So even all of my news reporting professors would encourage all of us to get involved in student media organizations, because even they said, we can learn about the basics and the fundamentals in our courses, but until you get out there and actually go do it and go put yourself out there, interview random people for stories, you're not going to get the true kind of reporting experience that will help you if you continue to do this for your career once leaving Penn State. So I got involved with the Collegian right off the bat, had a great time there. As the news editor specifically, it gave me my first teaching experience, which was great. It was definitely a challenge because I wasn't reporting as much, which I kind of missed at the time, but it was really good experience to focus more so on editing other reporters' stories and trying to help them grow as writers, and then see if they would be interested in taking over the reins someday and becoming editors themselves. That was an extremely rewarding experience, I would say. And then outside of that, my final semester at Penn State, or actually I graduated a semester early, so then I stayed for the full year. So that what would have been my last semester, I was writing as a news intern for Penn State News through the Student Affairs Department. And that was also an amazing experience. I loved working for that department because it let me see the other side of news reporting, where it's not so much reporting on everything that's going on in the community, but it was just for an organization, so at the university, and seeing the public relations side of writing, which I did really enjoy as well. And in between those, I also had a news internship with the Center Daily Times, which I also really loved. That definitely pushed me as a reporter to tackle some difficult stories within the State College community and just within Center County. That definitely helped me grow as a writer, to cover a little bit of a broader area and to talk to people who weren't necessarily just Penn State students, like most of my stories at the Daily Collegian were focused on. So all three of those things combined were amazing experiences, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. They all taught me so much as a writer and just as a person.
So what I hear you saying is that you found your Penn State education super valuable, but also the things that you had an opportunity to do outside of the classroom as being really impactful in your college career. So speaking of things that were impactful in your college career, can you tell us a little bit about your involvement in the Alumni Association student membership group, the Blue and White Society?
Yes. So I wanted to get involved with different organizations right off the bat, like I said. So the Collegian was kind of number one on my list. I didn't know about the Blue and White Society until I just happened to be walking by the Alumni Association building, I believe during my first week on campus, and there was the Blue and White Society bash going on. So it was like kind of kicking off the semester, kicking off the school year at the alumni building. And I can't remember exactly who it was, but I talked to one of the members at the time she was a member of the programming board. And I just struck up a conversation, didn't really know what Blue and White Society was, quickly found out that it's essentially the student membership version of the Alumni Association membership. And it seemed like a really great opportunity. So I applied right away, did my interview, and then got accepted to the programming board. And I got to work on the marketing and communications committee. So I was in charge of creating graphics that we would send out via email to all of the Blue and White Society members. I would work with the team to draft the copy and then create little graphics as well, to make it a little bit more engaging than just this giant block of text for students to read, and just let them know about what Blue and White Society membership was, all the fun events that we would host on campus all the time. And that was good because it gave me kind of my first taste of the PR side of the news industry. And I got to meet some really great people through that. And some of those people are still my friends, and I keep in contact with them today. So that definitely sparked my interest in wanting to actually become a member of the Alumni Association upon graduation. So that was a really, really great experience.
That's really great to hear. We love the stories of people who have gotten involved as students and then remain connected with the people they met while they were students, as well as who they worked with and did things with in the different groups they were involved with. So that's really great to hear. So we're going to shift gears a little bit, and can you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today? So your path to the aviation industry is so unique. How did you transition from journalism and reporting to aviation?
Sure. So it's kind of funny because I was so dead set on being a news reporter pretty much since high school. That's when the dream kind of started. And it's not that I lost that dream. I had an amazing time at Penn State, like unparalleled experiences with news reporting, as I previously kind of discussed. But my summer before my final semester at Penn State, I started, as I was normally doing, reading the news, of course, and I kept seeing all these articles about the pilot shortage and, all these airlines need pilots and what's going on and how the aviation industry was changing. And I just kind of started thinking to myself, like, I wonder how you even become a pilot. I just kind of thought about it and started doing some research. My mom has been a flight attendant for 35 years for United Airlines. So that kind of was the original, sparked the original interest, because I was fortunate enough to grow up going on airplane rides pretty frequently. So I always thought, looking inside the cockpit door and seeing what the pilots were up to as I'm walking on the plane as a kid, and just the whole airport experience, the giddiness of getting ready to go on a trip somewhere and then going to the airport, going through security, just the whole process kind of amazed me. And I just was reading all these articles about the pilot shortage, decided to start doing this research on how to become a pilot. And then I thought to myself, why couldn't I do this? So I went to my local airport at home after doing all this research, found out that there's this thing that you can do called a discovery flight, which essentially is your first flight lesson. So you pay a couple $100, you go up in a tiny Cessna, and you fly around for an hour or two with an instructor and see if it's for you. And my mom encouraged me to do this as well, because long before she started her flight attendant career, she had taken a couple flight lessons and told me she knew it wasn't for her. So she thought that I should do this just to make sure this would be something I'd actually be interested in and wouldn't potentially get airsick or get too scared or anything like that. And I took that discovery flight, and I was just smiling the entire time. I couldn't believe how cool it was. The rest of the day, the rest of that whole week, honestly, I was just grinning ear to ear. I couldn't shake the feeling that I got. So that's when I kind of started to think about shifting gears. And my grandfather also encouraged me to consider becoming a pilot, because he was a Huey helicopter medevac pilot in the Vietnam War. So he went through the military route, but he's the only other person with pilot experience in my family. So he was an inspiration as well. But I knew I didn't want to go to the military route. So I started looking at flight schools in the area, and then eventually found the United Aviate Academy, which is where I completed all of my training. So out near Phoenix, Arizona. And I started that the year after I graduated, and didn't look back, and I've loved every minute of it. And now here I am flight instructing. So it's really cool to be on the other side of things now, where I'm actually teaching new students.
That is very cool. And speaking of cool, you have some very cool videos on your Instagram of some of your flights. And so, listeners, if you don't already follow Erin, you can head to Instagram and follow her at Aviator Erin. Erin, can you tell us your most memorable or meaningful flight so far in your career?
Yes. The first one that always comes to mind is during my commercial pilot training, we have to do a lot of what's called cross-country time building. So you have to fly somewhere that's at least 50 nautical miles away from your home base airport for it to be considered a cross-country. But at my school, we were fortunate enough to not really be limited too much on different airports that we can fly to. So one day for one of my planned solo lessons, I checked the weather. Everything looked good up north. So I decided to hit a couple of airports north of Phoenix. The first one being Sedona, which was the most beautiful approach into a runway that I've ever done. It was so beautiful looking at all of the red rocks. If you've never been to Sedona, I would highly recommend doing a trip out there, especially this time of year where it's starting to cool down a little bit. It was such a beautiful airport. The runway kind of sits on top of one of the little mountain cliffs, I would say. So I flew there, hopped out, went into the FBO, which is fixed base operator. So it's just kind of the service building that's at the airport. And they have these little certificates that you can buy. I think it was like $5. But it just says that you landed on the Sedona runway up in the Red Rocks, and it has this cool little picture of the runway. It's just it's not a truly meaningful certificate in the sense of, it doesn't count for anything, but it's just cool to have. It's a cool memory, especially since I was completely alone. And then I flew from Sedona up to the Page Airport up in Page, Arizona, which sits just at the border of Arizona and Utah. So as I was coming in to land, it overlooks, I believe it's called Antelope Canyon, and kind of the Lake Powell area of Utah. And it was just so beautiful. The sun was setting, everything was all sun-kissed and orange, and I refueled and then went back to our home base airport down by Phoenix. But that whole flight was amazing because I also got to overfly the Grand Canyon going there and coming back. So I've never even been to the Grand Canyon on foot, but I've flown over it a couple times now. So that was definitely my most memorable flight.
Thank you so much for sharing. It sounds like an amazing experience. And I know Arizona is such beautiful landscape, and to be able to see it from above. And I love all the pictures that you're painting with the colors for all of our listeners. So thank you for that. Can you tell us, Erin, what being a flight instructor has taught you?
Yes. So I just pretty much started out a couple months ago. It has taught me a lot so far, because you think you know pretty much everything, not everything, but you've got a good understanding of what you're doing. And then your student will ask you a question about something that you've never really considered. So then you have to go home, hit the books yourself, and review what you thought you knew, and do a little bit of a deeper dive into everything that you've already learned. So it has been very rewarding so far. My students have made good progress thus far. It'll be cool to sign them off for their actual check ride with the FAA. So I haven't done that yet, but I'm very excited to get to that point with them. It has been very rewarding in the sense that it's taught me how to communicate better. If a student doesn't understand something, you've got to figure out a different way to explain it in order for them to actually be able to get it, and then we can move on to the next topic. I've loved it so far. I have students who are in the instrument rating, so a lot of that is in our simulators on campus. So it's not as much flight time actually in the plane, but teaching them concepts on the ground and then being able to replicate those in the plane as well. I personally feel like it's the most challenging rating or license that you could teach to somebody. So it's kind of nice in a way because I've been thrown into it right from the start of teaching. So it's been very challenging, but very rewarding so far.
How do you think that your time at Penn State helped you grow, and how did it influence your unique approach to becoming a certified flight instructor?
I think that Penn State helped me grow because of the sheer size of the campus and the student body. I think a lot of people, myself included, before I actually went to a big school, I kind of thought that I would just be another number, and it would be easy to get kind of lost on campus with how many other students are there doing their own thing. But I feel like the connections that I made, especially throughout news reporting, definitely helped me grow because it helped me see people who have a spark and a passion for something, and are very committed to whatever it is they're trying to achieve. So it's just really inspirational. As cliche as it sounds, it's really inspirational to when I would interview people for stories and then hear their passion about their goals and their dreams for at Penn State and beyond and in their future careers. Interviewing interesting people, getting to connect with them, and just kind of having that movie-like feeling on campus where everybody is very passionate about something, definitely helped me to think about my own goals, which I think honestly eventually led me to thinking about pursuing something other than what I was studying. So yeah, I think overall it's the size of the student body, but then also the size of the alumni association, which goes hand in hand. Just knowing that wherever I go, I'm sure I can find a Penn Stater to help me out in the area if I need, and just feeling that sense of connection wherever I go.
So tell us, I know that you're early in your flight instructor time in your career, but what do you see in terms of your future? What's next for you in this really exciting career that you're building?
Yeah, so typically, to go move on to a regional airline, you have to have 1,500 flight hours. So that's kind of the magic number for most flight instructors. As soon as they hit their 1,500 hours, they're out of there. They're moving on to the regional airlines. And then from there, you spend a few years flying, building more hours, upgrading to captain, and then you can move on to your mainline carrier. So like a United, a Delta, American. Those are kind of the big ones that we all know. That's kind of the route that I think I'm trying to take right now. So like you said, I'm early on in instructing, so I don't have too many instruction hours or dual given, as it's called, yet. But slowly but surely, I will work my way to those 1,500 hours. And at that point, it will kind of just depend on how the industry's looking. I know it kind of always ebbs and flows in the airline industry, as we've all seen with the Boeing delays, kind of slow things down, and there's kind of a trickle-down effect from mainline to the regionals to flight schools across the country. So it's a little bit slower right now, but I'm not really upset about it because so far I've liked instructing, and I could see myself doing that beyond the 1,500 hours as well, either out of necessity or just because I like it so far. So that's kind of the traditional path that I'm trying to take. So the eventual goal would be to end up working for a major airline. So probably one of those big three would be my end term goal.
This is the People of Penn State, and I'm Liz King. I'm joined by Erin Hogge, certified flight instructor with the United Aviate Academy. Okay, Erin, let's have some fun and go to a lightning round. Favorite class at Penn State?
Gosh, a couple come to mind. I think how I had mentioned before, that history course, I believe it was History 445 with Dr. Daniel Letwin, all about the early American industrialism, the whole boom in manufacturing. That's just kind of my favorite time period in history to learn about. And like I said before, that professor made it such an engaging class and not just like a typical kind of dry approach to learning history. So that one is the first one that comes to mind.
If you can have dinner with anyone, who would it be and why?
Trying to think back. I think Sally Ride. She was the first American woman to go to space. She had a few space shuttle missions, I believe. I feel like it'd be really, really awesome to hear her perspective as an astronaut in general, but also as a female in the industry, in a male-dominated industry, because that's kind of what I'm going through right now with trying to be a pilot in a very clearly male-dominated industry. I think it'd be inspiring to hear what she would have to say, because I know she was always very encouraging of other women and young girls getting into aerospace and that whole industry. So I would say Sally Ride.
Great answer. What are you reading right now?
Oh my gosh, I'm always reading something. I'm surrounded by books right now. Gonna look back at my shelf and see. I'm reading one right now called Galileo's Daughter, which kind of talks about the relationship between Galileo and I believe it's his oldest daughter. They had a very close relationship, and it's interesting to see how she kind of influenced Galileo's thought process toward all of his studies and inventions and observations about the universe and astronomy and all that. So that's the top one on my nightstand bookshelf right now. I've got a couple bookshelves going in my room.
That sounds like a great book. What is your most unusual "we are" moment? So either unusual or an unexpected place where you heard somebody shout, "We are."
I feel like this is probably a typical answer, but just in the airport, I feel like that happens all the time. Without even thinking about it, you're wearing a Penn State shirt or a Penn State hat, and inevitably somebody is going to make a comment, and that's always really fun. So it's not really unusual, but it is pretty fun. The only other time I guess that would be unusual, he didn't shout "We are," but actually when I took my discovery flight, the instructor who I went up with, we got to talking about my background, and I told him I was just about to finish up at Penn State, and he wasn't a Penn Stater himself, but he loved the Penn State atmosphere and told me all about how he and his wife would go up for Penn State volleyball games all the time. So that was the more unusual connection, just since he wasn't a Penn Stater himself. So it was cool to see somebody on the outside, I suppose, still have a love for the whole "we are" atmosphere.
What is your favorite Penn State sport?
I feel like I have to say Penn State football. I know that's probably the most common answer, but like I said before, the whiteout football game is unreal, especially from my background. Like I said before, I was only looking at small schools. Some of them didn't even have a football team, which I didn't really care about, honestly, going into it. But then once I got to experience my first home game, I was kind of hooked. So now it's kind of just, that's going to be with me for the rest of my life.
And last question, and this could be tough. What is your favorite flavor of creamery ice cream?
Oh gosh. I always would go into the creamery and order Death by Chocolate. So I'm going to have to say Death by Chocolate. That's also a funny Penn State memory, because when you order a Death by Chocolate milkshake, the employee will yell to the back, whoever's making it, "I need one death shake, please." And it just always sounded really funny. Always got my friends and I laughing. So yeah, definitely Death by Chocolate.
Good choice. Well, Erin, thank you so much for allowing us to share your story on the People of Penn State podcast. And thanks to our producer, Vincent Longaro, and our guest relations coordinator, Abby Clark. If you like this episode, I hope you will subscribe to the People of Penn State podcast in your favorite podcast app of choice. And while you're there, give us a rating and drop us a review. Help us spread the word, share the podcast with your friends and fellow Penn Staters via your social media channels, and tag the Penn State Alumni Association with @Penn State Alums. If you are a member of the Penn State Alumni Association, thank you for your support. And if you're not, what are you waiting for? Visit alumni.psu.edu and you can become a member of the world's largest alumni association. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all you do for the university. For the glory, for the future, we are.